All right, hey everybody, Mark Burgess here, Big East Bass Fishing again. Today I want to bring you a little tip on how I like to rig soft plastic swim baits, okay? So how I rig them, the different ways that I fish them, and the equipment that I fish them on, okay? So let's get right into it here. A lot of different ways to rig soft plastic swim baits, okay? Hollow body swim baits, your Kitech type baits, minnow style baits. I have a bunch of them, laid out here that I'm going to show you. So I guess I'll start off with the most common or the easiest to talk about really. Your small, Kitech style baits. Small paddle tail style baits, like that. Pretty simple, really. Basically ball head jig, 2, 3, 4/0, 1/8 ounce, 1/4 ounce, to get started. That's probably the easiest thing. I fish these mostly on spinning tackle, 8, 10 pound test line. That spinning reel will be loaded, with say, braid, up to 20 pound braid, with a fluorocarbon leader to fish, this style bait. Works good. I don't do a lot of forward facing sonar fishing, but that minnow style bait, with a ball head jig, jig head, exposed hook. That's basically what you're doing with that. I'll do that a fair amount, even without forward facing sonar. And when you get up to a little bit bigger swim bait, your Kitechs, your 4.8s, things like that, like a bait like that, hollow body swim baits. Couple here that I have that I'm gonna talk about how I rig them. Here's one I'll show you a little bit more about. So when you're fishing, say is a Kitech, 4.8 Kitech, okay, decent sized bait. This bait works absolutely fantastic for me. Tennessee shad, golden shiner color. There's really two basic ways I rig the bait. Okay, what I really like doing is taking a weighted, like 1/8 ounce to 1/4 ounce weighted 5/0 hook with a little screw lock. You see that screw lock on the front of it. Okay, so real simple here. On this 4.8 Kitech. I'm using a minimum of a 4/0. I like the 5/0. Real simple. You screw it into the nose of the bait. Like so. I like to have the screw lock, that basically be horizontal. If you can see that actual little wire screw lock is horizontal so that the hook eye can be vertical, okay? So free swinging, you have a little bit of a slot in the bottom of the Kitech. Measure it back out. You'll see pretty much where that back end of the hook is. I like to put my thumb, where the back of the hook is. Bend it down. There's a slot under there, as I mentioned. You go straight up and out, and there's also a slot on the top. So if you do it right, it goes right into that slot. Okay, so there is no hook exposed, not even really tech exposed. It's open, but it's in that slot. Okay, you want it perfectly straight like that. Okay, so when I'm fishing vegetation, this is how I rig my Kitechs. Okay. 5/0, 4 or 5/0, 1/8 ounce belly weighted hook. You see plenty of room there for this bait to collapse when a fish bites it. There's no problem at all with a hook penetrating the fish's mouth, okay? So if I'm fishing any type of vegetation, that's how I rig a 4.8 Kitech, okay? Cast this thing a country mile. Equipment I'm using, 7.3 medium heavy rod, 20-pound fluoro, 7-to-1 gear ratio reel, okay? And that's, I mean, I can't tell you how many fish I've caught rig like this. It's a go-to in the summer. Absolute, you know, in the boat, rigged up, all end of the spring, but certainly all summer long, fishing in any type of vegetation. This comes through completely weed free and catches a ton of fish. You know, the weight allows you to cast it a country mile, being keel weighted. You know, the bait stays correct all the time. And if you want to pop it through an opening, like a pocket and a coontail or something like that, or even pads, it's real easy to do that. Come through, boom, let it sink down. You get a lot of bites like that, okay? Now, if I'm fishing this bait, which I fish this bait a lot, if I'm fishing this bait, say now, wintertime, into the spring, and in the summertime, if I'm offshore, if I'm fishing deeper water, 20, 25 feet, what I like to do is fish it on a football head jig, okay? So deep water, this is a 3/4 ounce green pumpkin painted 4/0 football head, okay? So you see it's got a weed guide, which you can leave the weed guide on if you want, okay? And thread it up onto the bait. And if you're fishing around some type of cover where, you know, brush, some wood, you know, thicker vegetation, possibly, you know, down there deep, you could leave that weed guard on there, okay? But what I typically do, and a lot of people will do this, they'll take either a razor knife or a pair of snips and they'll cut the weed guard off. I go a little bit further than that. By doing that, it leaves a little bit of a rough edge, and that rough edge will pick up debris, you know, small grass and things like that. So what I like to do is take a pair of pliers, okay, and I'll pull the weed guard right out of the head of the jig, okay? So it's not even on there at all. Same idea, I'm looking to see where this hook's gonna come through the bait. Put it through. Again, you wanna stay as straight as you possibly can. Come out in that groove, okay? Now, what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna take a little bit of fishing glue or super glue up onto the head, push it up on there, like that. Make sure it's straight. Looks like I might have done this a few times. So there you have it right there. So this is designed to fish on the bottom or very close to the bottom, okay? And the way I fish it is I'll make a long cast, and this is, I mean, you can get away with the, you know, deeper open water, you know, 17-pound to 20-pound fluoro, same rod, 7'3" medium heavy, or even go to my flipping stick, 7'6" medium heavy. Okay, so say that with 20-pound line. I'll use that 15 to 17 on the 7'3" medium heavy and 20-pound on the 7'6" flipping stick. Cast this thing a country mile, cast it out, let it go to the bottom, watch your line. Okay, this is a little tip. Watch your line. That's going to tell you a couple things. If your line is sinking and your fish, you just made a cast out in 20 feet of water and your line pops, you know, before it gets to the bottom, and if you've made a few casts, you know how long it takes to get to the bottom. When the bait hits the bottom, you'll see your line make contact with the bottom, okay? So it stops moving, jumps a little bit when it hits the bottom. If that happens earlier than what you're become used to, that's a bite, okay? A lot of times, especially smallmouth, they like to swim up off the bottom. they'll eat this on the way down. They'll see it coming down, and they'll come up and eat it. Okay, so watch your line for it jumping prior to it getting to the bottom. Okay, so once it gets to the bottom, if you don't have a bite, I like to aim the rod straight at the bait. Okay, I'm not out to the side. It's straight down, you know, probably 8 o'clock-ish, you know, and slow reel, okay? It's just a constant stay, almost like you're gonna fish a football jig in the summertime. Same thing with this swim bait. You just slowly reeling the bait, watching it. It's gonna be hitting things on the bottom. You know, if you feel it basically loading up a little bit with some debris, you can just pop it free. But the bite, I've experienced 2 different type bites. All of a sudden, it's getting hard to wind, like I hooked a towel, especially in the colder water. It's just abnormally heavy. Set the hook. The other thing is it's a violent bite. They literally came down and just drove it into the bottom. That's a dead giveaway. Obviously, you know, set the hook. Okay, so that's a 3/4 ounce football jig. I'll do it with 3/8 and 1/2 ounce, and I typically with no cover and pulling the weed guard out, so it doesn't. There's nothing for the weed to really grab onto right there. All right, so first hook I showed you was a 5/0 1/8 ounce belly weighted hook. Again, I'll fish it in 4 and 5/0. Smaller swim baits, I'll use a 3/0 if it's not exposed like that. If I'm fishing around grass, same thing. You know, belly weighted 3/0 just to match the size of the bait. Okay. Of course, jig head. All right, open water style. Not so. This is basically swimming. You know, this head is not designed to fish on the bottom. You know, if it's a bottom, I'm using a football head. But if I'm swimming, just swimming the bait, you know, like this is a hollow body swim bait. Threaded up on there, exposed hook, like that. Another little trick I want to show you. This is pretty cool. Basically, you're taking an underspin. Okay, underspin. Take the swivel off, along with that little willow leaf blade. Take that off, thread it through the back, cut a slit in the back, like that. Thread it up all the way up in there, poke the line tie out, leave the eye on the bottom, reattach. If you want to have that little bit of flash, okay, you could fish it like that, okay, or you take that off and put a treble, okay? So that's what that is. That's an underspin stuffed up inside a hollow body swim bait. I got the exposed hook on the back, internally weighted, and a treble stinger, if you will, on the bottom. Okay, so I love doing that. Not taking any chances with that. Okay, I mean, if they're eating it, and you think that flash is going to help, okay, you can definitely rig the bait with that little willow leaf on the bottom to give yourself just a little bit more flash, a little bit more action. All right, so that's it in a nutshell. I hope that helps you out. Kind of a crash course in how I fish a hollow body swim bait and a Kitech style bait. The different ways that I do it, depending on how deep a water I'm fishing and whether or not there's vegetation. Okay, so puts a lot of fish in the boat for me, and I hope it will for you as well. And again, any questions, because you go through this kind of fast, but any questions, feel free in the comments to ask me anything that I may not have covered, or if you have any questions, I appreciate it. All right, so don't forget to subscribe. That way you won't miss any of these videos. I'm coming up on my 500th video, so we're going to do a little deal about that too as well. So everybody have a great day, and we'll see you out on the water.